Sarah and I first crossed paths about 7 years ago, and we hit it off immediately, becoming close friends. We both hailed from the Midwest, where our strong Christian upbringing taught us to put God first, even before family. Sundays were spent at church, followed by conversations about our dreams and aspirations. I was on a promising path in my engineering career, while Sarah excelled in selling accounting software for a major tech firm in Atlanta. Before we tied the knot, my parents gifted me a 3-bedroom house as a graduation present. They preferred to share their wealth while they were still alive. Mom and Dad found immense joy in giving during their lifetime. Sarah and I got married just over 5 years ago, and ever since, it felt like we were on an endless honeymoon. Our intimate life was passionate, with moments of closeness at least 4 nights a week. Our friends often teased us, envying our bond, convinced we were soulmates. Our happiness grew when we welcomed 2 beautiful blonde twin girls into our lives. After their birth, our focus shifted entirely to raising them in a warm and loving environment. Some might find our lifestyle dull. We usually dined at home most evenings, reserved Friday and Saturday for outings, and Sunday was for church. Unlike our peers, we weren't interested in socializing or keeping up with fashion. Sarah preferred conservative clothing both at work and at home, and our intimate moments were kept private. Our marriage was built on trust and transparency, forming a solid foundation. Sarah was naturally affectionate, showing her love through gentle gestures, kisses, and hugs, which I adored. We openly shared our feelings and deeply valued each other. Raising the twins was challenging, but I cherished every moment with them. Although the twins sometimes stressed Sarah, I was always there to support her through any difficulties. Our partnership was based on effective communication, ensuring quick problem-solving. Life with Sarah and our twin girls was smooth and fulfilling. However, a week before the annual trade show, Sarah was informed she would have to participate due to several colleagues falling ill. Despite her attempts to decline, she had no choice due to the urgency. She expressed her frustration, saying she hated being away from us and tried to avoid it by contacting her boss. I reassured her that we would manage without her for a few days, and that we would miss her dearly. I helped her pack and saw her off to the limousine arranged by the company for her trip to the airport. Our marriage had always been strong, based on trust and transparency. There were never any signs that Sarah was acting unlovingly or unfaithfully. We openly shared everything and worked together as a team, especially when it came to our children. On the second night of the trade show, I received a message from Tom, a colleague and friend, who was at a cybersecurity event in Atlanta. He mentioned seeing Sarah at the trade show and asked if I was supposed to be at the security conference. He seemed curious about the trade show Sarah was attending, and I confirmed it was in Atlanta, though I wasn't sure of the exact name. Tom's message left me wondering what he was trying to imply. His message included 2 photos and a video. I sat paralyzed with horror as I opened them. The first photo showed my wife in an outfit I didn't recognize, the shortest dress I had ever seen her wear, accentuating her ample chest with a deep neckline. She wore shoes I didn't recognize, and her hair and makeup were flawless, exuding stunning allure. She had never looked so attractive to me before. At first, I convinced myself it must be someone who resembled Sarah. It seemed unbelievable that it could be her. I laughed inwardly, thinking I wished Sarah would dress like that one day. But the amusement faded with the next photo, a close-up of her sitting next to David, one of her bosses. I sat there stunned and motionless, not blinking until the next photo appeared, a close-up of her smiling and looking into David's eyes. My heart sank at the sight. Although I tried to rationalize that there must be a logical explanation, it seemed futile. The next message contained a short video clip showing my wife kissing David, her arms wrapped around his neck while his hand rested on her right breast. At that moment, my world collapsed. Tears of despair streamed down my face, my heart raced, and I was overwhelmed with nausea. A message came through. "Hey, are you okay? What should I do? Can you see her right now?" I replied, "Yes. I'll call her now to find out how she is." I dialed her number, hearing it ring several times before going to voicemail. Leaving a message, I expressed our desire to talk to her, and hoped she was having a pleasant evening. I updated Tom. "I just tried to reach her." "What happened?" Tom expressed his regret. "Michael, I'm so sorry." She took the phone out of her bag, looked at the caller ID, then put it back. "I can't believe it's her. I've never seen her behave or dress like that." "Tom, it's okay. Thank you for being honest with me. You're a true friend. I'll handle this myself. If possible, avoid confronting her. Let me know if anything else happens, but don't waste time tracking her. I'll handle it. Will you be okay, buddy? No, I'm far from okay, but I know what I need to do. I'll deal with it. I'm still recovering from the shock, but I'll come to terms with it. Thanks again. Always happy to help. Take care. Thanks again. I poured myself a stronger drink and sat in the dimly lit living room, pondering how my world had crumbled in 20 minutes. I had been blind to any issues in our relationship. How long had this been going on? Had I really missed the signs? No. She had never given me any reason for concern. In fact, our connection had only strengthened over the past 6 months, our intimacy deepening. None of this made sense, leaving me in complete bewilderment. Over the next hour, Tom sent more photos and videos. A short clip showed them dancing, his hand on her back. Another photo showed them kissing on the dance floor. A photo showed a deep, private kiss on the deserted dance floor, ignoring the music ending. I realized it was over between us. I had much to think about and understand. Using my analytical skills as an engineer, I spent the next few days crafting a detailed plan. Then, unexpectedly, Sarah called me around 10 p.m., just after I received the latest compromising photo. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves, determined not to show any signs of knowing about her infidelity. Hi, honey. Sorry I missed your earlier call. I was at a business meeting and couldn't step away. I miss you so much, darling. I wish I could be with you, snuggle under the covers, and shower you with kisses. I miss you too, Sarah. I love you very much. Thank you for calling. The girls are great. I'll send you some pictures. They miss Mommy a lot and can't wait for you to come home. I tried to leave tomorrow, but my boss insisted I stay. I hate being away from you, honey. We'll celebrate when I get back. Are you done for the day? Yes, I'm getting ready for bed after a long day. Love you, darling. I'll call you tomorrow. Good night, Sarah. I love you more than words can express, I said, hanging up as tears filled my eyes. Despite everything, my love for her was real, and I desperately hoped this was just a horrible dream. Lying in bed after midnight, I couldn't sleep, tormented by thoughts of whether she was really in her hotel room and what she might be doing. My fears were confirmed when Tom sent another message. It was a photo of Sarah and David on a couch in the lobby, kissing. His hand was under her short skirt, her hands around his neck. They looked like a couple in love. One more thing, buddy. I'm done for the night, but she seems busy. Let me know if you want me to stop. I can easily do that. It's hard to take right now, but thanks for the photos. No need to stop. Let it be. It's her fault, not yours. Stay out of it. Thanks again. I cried until I fell asleep, realizing my wife's betrayal. Eventually, exhaustion and the presence of our daughters brought some comfort, easing the pain and tears until I woke up the next morning. Sarah sent me several loving messages filled with hearts, kisses, and emojis. She professed her love, saying how much she missed me and the girls. She even hinted at a passionate night when she returned. When she came back, she was all tenderness and love, acting as if nothing had happened. I began to wonder if she had some personality disorder or was taking some medication. Despite my desperate search for explanations, I realized I would have to face the harsh reality and prepare for her return home. Our conversation seemed normal, with Sarah expressing her desire to be with us again. I couldn't decide what hurt more, her betrayal or the web of lies she spun. The betrayal hurt as deeply as seeing her with David. After learning of my wife's infidelity through Tom's messages, I knew I had to take decisive action. Using my technical skills, I discreetly installed tracking software on her phone, initially intended for locating lost devices. I chose the latest software and even walked Sarah through its setup. This software also had a recorder that could capture calls, text messages, and emails with automatic cloud uploads upon activation. Let me clarify. I never intended to spy on her, but circumstances forced me. Before this, I would never have considered invading her privacy. However, given recent events, my trust was completely shattered. My priority was to protect our daughters and, if possible, save our marriage. Fortunately, caring for the twins kept me busy, offering a distraction from the relentless thoughts about our crumbling relationship. Whether it was making breakfast, cleaning up after them, or playing with their dolls, these moments were priceless amid the chaos. Trust me, caring for 3-year-old twins is no small feat. At 2 p.m., I finally put the girls down for their nap. After tidying up the house and taking a shower, I sat at my desk to catch up on work. Sarah had sent me 6 more loving messages, saying she would call at 5 p.m. after her day ended. Reading them, I logged into the cloud from my laptop, accessed her account, and reviewed everything recorded since activating the tracking software. I was shocked reading the messages she exchanged with David. Here are some excerpts. "You were amazing last night, darling. Can't wait for tonight. Thanks, babe. I enjoyed it too. Can we stop by my room before dinner after work?" "Sure, but I need to call my husband first. I'll be ready by 5:15 p.m. "Does your husband suspect anything?" "Of course not. He thinks I love him and I'll keep it that way. We've kept this secret for over 6 months and he suspects nothing. Don't worry." My anger surged to a level where I had to stop reading. "Babe." He called her babe? That was my affectionate nickname for her during our intimate moments. Had she given him that too? Was I really that blind? I placed my laptop on the chair and screamed, grabbing the lamp from the desk and throwing it against the wall, shattering it into pieces. The anger I had kept under control now consumed me. Only when I was on the verge of breaking another lamp did I hear the girls crying. Their cries brought me back to reality, and I regained control. I rushed into their room, holding both until they calmed down. After cleaning up the shattered glass, I let them play in the living room, sitting with another strong drink and contemplating my actions. In my mind, the marriage was irreparably broken, and it was time to act. I couldn't bear to listen to their conversations or review any more files, so I let them accumulate in the cloud. I decided to play the role of a loving husband while formulating my next move. My immediate plan was to appear as a loving husband while I crafted a detailed plan. I intended to contact a divorce lawyer, hire a private investigator, and find a way to secure custody of the girls. Their well-being was my top priority, and the only thing that truly mattered to me. "Hi, dear. How are the girls holding up?" "They miss Mommy." "Oh my God. They are on my mind every day, every minute, and of course you too. I can't wait to hug you when I get back. I'll give you the warmest kiss you've ever received." I continued the charade, saying, "Oh, darling, I'm constantly thinking of you, dreaming of hugging my beautiful, loving wife. Soon, honey, we'll be together again." Somehow I held it together throughout the entire 15-minute call at 5:15 p.m. She said goodbye with the words, "I love you, Michael. I need to go to catch the bus to the hotel. I'll text you later." Another casual lie. She was extraordinarily skilled at it. "I love you too, dear. More than words can express," I replied. The pain of her betrayal had transformed into a mixture of contempt, anger, and a burning desire for revenge. I was determined to expose her lies and make her accountable. My love for her had been all-consuming, making her betrayal even harder to bear. At the airport, she greeted me with hugs and kisses as promised. She was either an extraordinary actress or truly cared about me. Was her connection with David purely physical? Her behavior left me bewildered. She spent an hour with the girls, genuinely enjoying their company. That night, she was exceptionally tender in bed, constantly saying how much she missed me and the girls and how she hated being away. She said she wanted nothing more than to be with me, holding each other in bed. She was tender and loving, the complete opposite of the woman I saw in the photos and videos. I reciprocated, hoping against hope that this was real, as being with her was all I desired. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before everything was revealed. I kept my new knowledge secret, showering her with love and attention. Outwardly, our relationship seemed perfect, envied by many. This facade lasted for 3 months, during which I found no signs of further infidelity. She came home from work at the usual time every evening, and there were no suspicious calls or messages. I even began to hope that perhaps it had all been a terrible mistake and that everything would return to normal. Then I received a call from Mr. Taylor, the private investigator, who wanted to meet the next day. I drove to his downtown office and sat in the conference room. "Good afternoon, Michael. Glad to see you again," Mr. Taylor greeted me. "Likewise, Mr. Taylor." "Michael, I'm sorry, but I have bad news. Are you ready to review our findings?" I sighed and nodded, preparing for the worst. Mr. Taylor placed a thick binder in front of me, divided into sections for text messages, call transcriptions, video calls, phone call transcriptions, and photographs. "Mr. Taylor, I'm confused. I've been closely monitoring her activities and schedule for the past 3 months, and nothing seems suspicious. She has been the perfect wife and mother. None of this makes sense. Let me walk you through the evidence. Maybe it will help clarify things, Mr. Taylor suggested. I had avoided accessing the files in the cloud, hoping for a positive outcome, but my hope was shattered. There were over 75 pages of text messages, 25 pages of emails, and 75 pages of time-stamped photographs showing their entry and exit from hotel rooms. Additionally, there were over 82 video calls and 50 pages of phone conversations. Sarah and David had met in a motel at least 4 times a week for the past 3 months, spending an average of 2 hours each time. It appears that in the past month, 2 men met with your wife 4 times a week. Do you recognize this man? Mr. Taylor asked, pointing to a photograph. Oh my God, that's John Williams, the CEO of her company? Are you saying she had relationships with 2 men, one of whom was her CEO? Unfortunately, yes. According to text messages, phone calls, and videos, she was involved in sexual relationships with both men. The video call titled Balcony shows her with John in an intimate moment, unaware they were being recorded. Our high-definition video captured their faces and audio. Mr. Taylor played the video on a large screen. There was Sarah, leaning over the balcony railing, with John behind her. I felt a wave of nausea and had to step out of the room to compose myself. After a few minutes, I returned, prompting them to continue. The video titled Balcony 2 shows your wife with both John and David. I'm sorry you have to see this, but these videos can be used if you decide to file for divorce and fight for custody. I sat there stunned and disbelieving. Could this really be Sarah? I desperately wanted it to be a mistake. Michael. We checked David Scott and John Williams. David has been married for 10 years and has 4 young children. Mr. Williams has been married for 25 years and has 3 grown children. The text messages indicate that David introduced John to their activities after your wife expressed interest in a threesome. This is terrible, so we'll leave you with this when you're ready. Here's the binder and a USB drive with all the files and videos your lawyer might need. When I met with my lawyer, she was shocked by the volume of evidence. She couldn't believe there were no signs of infidelity at home. Sarah continued to play the role of a devoted wife and mother, acting as if nothing had happened. The lawyer outlined various legal options based on the evidence, but she needed time to fully explore our options, scheduling another meeting for the following week. I instructed her to start filing for divorce as soon as possible. Leaving the lawyer's office, I felt a heavy weight in my stomach. I knew it was over even before these meetings, but viewing those videos shattered any hope of reconciliation. I was still in shock. Who was this woman? Later that evening, after we put the girls to bed, we decided to watch a movie on Netflix. I've heard Unfaithful is a good movie. Let's give it a try, I suggested, fully aware of the film's theme of infidelity. I rehearsed my approach. During the movie, I casually mentioned a young intern at my office who had shown interest in me for months. Can you imagine me with another woman? I laughed, trying to sound nonchalant. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Really? Who is she? If I even suspect you're thinking about her, I'm leaving, got it? You're mine and no one else's, she declared, her voice edged with a tone that surprised me. Her fierce reaction was ridiculous given her actions. Michael, why didn't you tell me about her earlier? What's her name? She demanded. Sarah, calm down. She's just an intern, a young girl who flirts a little. I completely ignore her. But what about you, Sarah? You're the most attractive woman in your office. Have you ever been flirted with? Of course not. They all know I'm married and would never cheat on you. So throughout our marriage, you've never thought about anyone else? Even an innocent kiss? Have you ever cheated on me, darling? I asked, looking straight into her eyes. Her face flushed with anger. Are you serious? How can you ask that? I constantly show you how much I love you. I've always been faithful. I can't believe you would think otherwise, she exclaimed. I apologized, agreeing with her to maintain the peace, and we returned to watching the movie. Inwardly, I marveled at her performance. She could have been an actress, considering how convincingly she lied. Once she seemed to have returned to the film, I decided to take the next step. I picked up my phone and opened the messaging app, finding the photo of Sarah and David passionately kissing on the dance floor, his hand firmly on her buttocks. I stared at the photo, waiting for the right moment. What are you doing, Michael? Why aren't you watching the movie? Because what I'm watching is much more real. What do you mean? I muted the movie and held the photo up to her face. She froze, words caught in her throat. I didn't take my eyes off the image. That's a very passionate kiss you're sharing with David. Care to explain? Where did you get that? She asked, her voice trembling. You had dinner with Tom, who saw you with this man. He sent this to confirm if it was you. And it is you, isn't it? I must say, you look quite stunning in that dress. I've never seen you wear something so revealing. Were you trying to impress your boyfriend? Speak. I'm listening, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Michael, we only danced once and he was drunk. After the song, he grabbed me and kissed me. What you don't see is that I slapped him right afterward and made a scene. I would never allow that. I bought this dress for a business dinner, not realizing how revealing it was. I'm so sorry, she stammered, looking disoriented. Okay, I understand. And this was the only incident? Yes, and he won't try it again. We returned to the movie, but I could feel her tension. A few minutes later, I pulled out my phone again, this time playing the video of them on the couch, his hand under her skirt. She noticed, and her face went pale. What are you watching now? Remember that night when you called, saying you were getting ready to go to bed after a long day? Yes, she whispered almost inaudibly. Interesting, because I received another message from Tom 2 hours later. This time it was a video. Want to see? I pressed play, showing them kissing, his hands all over her. I'd like to hear your explanation for this, I said, my anger now replaced with cold sarcasm. Michael, I'm so sorry. After we talked, David called, saying we needed to discuss a client issue. He asked me to meet him in the lobby. I had a few drinks and was a bit tipsy. You know how that is with me. Nothing more happened than what you saw. I told him to stop and reminded him that I am married. Please believe me. Babe. I emphasized the endearing nickname. The problem is, I've always believed you. But in the last 20 minutes, you've lied to me twice. Do you see my point? I'm here alone, and the woman I love is kissing her boss in photos and videos, dressed in the most revealing outfit I've ever seen on her. How do you think I feel? Michael, I love you. This happened months ago. Why didn't you talk to me earlier? Honestly, I wanted to see if you would confess. I wanted to believe that my wife was truthful and transparent. But now I see where we are. Are there any other lies? Are you involved with him? Do you love him? I asked, playing with her, relishing her discomfort. She began sobbing, repeating how much she loved me. Please, stop telling me how much you love me. I need answers. Are there any other deceptions? Michael, listen to me. Nothing more than a kiss happened. I admit I kissed him, but that's all. I always told him to stop. I don't know what Tom saw, but you have to believe me. Okay, stop crying. I trust you, but I'm confused. You've never dressed like that for me, not your hair or makeup. Was it for him? Do you have feelings for him? Are you considering leaving me, Sarah? Please, I need the truth. Tears flowed again. No, Michael. My love is only for you. I never want to lose you. Nothing happened. I don't know why I dressed like that. Maybe because other women were dressed that way and I felt insecure. But I promise, nothing else happened. I can understand that, but why didn't you tell me about David and your interactions if nothing happened? I didn't want to upset you, as my supervisor, and I couldn't risk losing my job. If something serious had happened, I would have told you immediately. Do you understand? I hugged her and kissed her, holding her gently as she cried. This was the beginning of my month-long revenge plan. That night we made love, and I distanced myself, imagining I was one of her many lovers. I refused to deny myself the pleasure of her body or warn her about what was coming. Her performance was flawless, but I didn't care. She was more passionate than ever, trying to convince me of my exclusive place in her heart. This routine continued for a few weeks. Each night her performance was impeccable, and I simply enjoyed the show. The next morning I checked the cloud for new messages from David. Predictably, she did not disappoint. Oh my God, someone took our pictures at the fair and sent them to Michael. His friend saw me at the restaurant without Michael. I don't know if he's aware, but the video showed us kissing. Damn, now that you mention it, I remember a guy with a phone across from us watching, but I didn't think anything of it. How did Michael react? Nothing. I convinced him nothing happened. Said I was drunk, and he believed it. A few kisses and good lovemaking always work. Be careful, darling. We're meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. as usual. Can't wait. Love you, babe. Love you too, babe. This was the last message, and I sat quietly, absorbing it all. I felt like the biggest fool in the world, but I felt a certain satisfaction from planning my revenge. I enjoyed watching Sarah's antics and waited to see how many more lies she would come up with. My first step was to secure my financial affairs, transferring funds, closing accounts, and so on. I left my primary Visa card active, but lowered the limit to $2,500 to minimize potential damage. Sarah remained oblivious to my growing anger and didn't notice any changes. I confirmed with my lawyer that since the house was mine before the marriage, I wouldn't be forced to leave when I filed for divorce. Naturally, I prepared an email with the videos, texts, and photos, which I would eventually send to all her contacts, friends, relatives, and colleagues. I also prepared duplicate binders from my personal account for Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Scott, ensuring they shared in their husband's humiliation. These materials would be delivered simultaneously with the legal notices and filings. I instructed my lawyer to prepare for public civil suits against both David, her supervisor, and John, the CEO of the company. Since the company was well known on the East Coast, my lawyer relished the prospect of involving the CEO. We planned to offer a settlement before revealing the CEO's and manager's behavior. Working with child custody attorneys, we aimed for full custody of the girls and meticulously gathered documents for the investigation. Over the next few weeks, everything seemed normal. We cared for the children and spent quality time together every day. Our conversations avoided the core issue, leaving the matter unresolved. My silence drove her to the edge. The uncertainty about what I was thinking must have tormented her. To further toy with Sarah, I asked a few probing questions. So, Sarah, has your boss taken any action against you after the fair? Is there anything you want to tell me? Armed with knowledge from her conversations with David, I marveled at her ability to maintain appearances. It was fascinating to watch her reaction, and I could even predict when she was about to lie. She responded calmly, stating that nothing had happened, and everything seemed strange because we were both pretending nothing had happened. Actually, he has remained completely professional, and our interactions have been minimal due to our busy schedules, she claimed. I sat there with a sly smile, still amazed that the woman who bore my children and whom I loved could lie so effortlessly. That night, I released the last remnants of the anger that had been simmering within me. I confronted her and fully exploited her vulnerability. "Oh my God, Michael! What has gotten into you? You're acting so wild and liberated today. I've never seen you so bold and uninhibited. I loved it," she exclaimed, breathless. I thought to myself, what a whirlwind. I knew this would be our last time before everything came to light the next day, and I wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. The next day after lunch, the sheriff entered the Tri-International office and asked to see Mr. Williams. A few minutes later, Sheriff Clark handed him an envelope. "Mr. Williams, you've been served." Alone in his spacious office, Williams held the envelope, fear gripping his entire being. After reading the complaint multiple times, he immediately instructed his secretary to call David to his office, while simultaneously calling him. David, too, was served by the same sheriff. He rushed to Williams' office, and they both stood there, stunned and bewildered. "What the hell is this? How did this happen?" David demanded. "If my wife finds out about this, I'm done for. This is on you. You promised this woman would never leave us. Fix this, John, or I will destroy you and your family. Do you understand?" William's threat was cold and menacing. David hurried out of the office, waiting for the elevator to go down to the 12th floor, intending to speak with Sarah. He noticed the sheriff approaching from the opposite direction, indicating he had come from Sarah's side. Bursting into her office, he found her sitting at her desk, tears streaming down her face. She was too emotional to speak. Michael had shattered her world just as she had done to him months earlier. It took her more than an hour to gather her thoughts and be able to express them. "What on earth happened?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "How did he find out everything?" Her voice quivered with panic. David's face turned pale. "I was just served with divorce papers," he said grimly. "What do you mean, us?" Sarah was confused. "John and I are being sued and facing a civil lawsuit because of our actions. We don't know the full extent of the evidence, but it must be more than just the photos you've seen. You need to convince Michael to back off, or John will ruin us. He'll destroy my family," David said desperately. "Oh my God, this is horrible," Sarah whispered, feeling the weight of the situation looming over her. "It's more than horrible. You have to go to him and make him understand. Do whatever it takes to stop this. Go home and confront him. Call me tonight if you can and keep me updated, David urged, his voice shaking. Sarah gathered her things and drove home, her mind racing. Her beloved husband and the father of her children were filing for divorce. She didn't want a divorce. She truly loved Michael, but she couldn't resist the allure of her affairs. She had to make Michael understand that she couldn't bear to lose him because of this. Arriving at the empty house, she found the girls at Michael's sister's house, as was the routine every day after work. She called Michael's sister, asking if she could keep the kids for the night. Sarah, not asking questions, agreed. Sarah took a shower, did her hair, put on makeup, and nervously waited for Michael to return from work. At 6 p.m., she heard the garage door open and prepared for his entry. "Hi, Sarah. I didn't expect to see you tonight. Thought you'd be with David." "Oh, wait, he's married and has kids. That might be awkward," Michael said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Michael, please, can we talk?" Sarah pleaded, taking his hand and leading him to the couch. Despite the tension, she tried to appear calm and composed. "Michael, I was served today, and I understand you're angry, but I don't want a divorce. I need you and love you. I won't sign these papers. David means nothing to me. Yes, we had sex, but it wasn't love. I just needed it, and I'm so sorry. I will never do it again, I promise." "Oh, you promise? That's reassuring. Let's just forget everything and go back to normal," Michael responded mockingly. Sarah hugged him and kissed him. "Thank you, honey. I love you so much. I'm grateful you're forgiving me and understanding. I won't lie to you anymore," she said, her voice trembling. Michael gently pushed her away. "You're mistaken if you think I can trust you again after all your lies and betrayals. There's nothing left. I gave you many chances, but you kept lying, cheating on me, and ruining our lives. I know all about your daily hotel meetings with your bosses. Did you really think I would take you back after all this? Did you even consider the harm you were causing the girls? I can't just ignore this." "But why go after John and David?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "Because they're part of this mess. They're CEOs of a multi-billion-dollar company. When I leave here, I'll need money to properly provide for the girls. Since they're partly responsible for destroying our marriage and my life, I will ruin them too. I plan to destroy their families, hit them financially, and use them just as they used you." Sarah had never seen Michael so serious and determined. The gravity of the situation finally hit her. She realized she had lost control of the situation and her husband. All she could do now was plead. She fell to her knees before Michael, clutching at his legs, begging for forgiveness. Michael felt a pang of pity, but his anger overpowered any sympathy. He lifted her up onto the couch, speaking to her as if she were a child. "Listen, Sarah, pull yourself together and stay at Mom's for a few nights. Find a lawyer, and then we can arrange a meeting to discuss everything. In the meantime, stay away from John and David. Things are about to get messy." Later that night at her mother's house, Sarah explained they had a fight and she needed to stay for a while. At 11 p.m., she called David on his mobile. David quickly connected with John on a three-way call. "John, are you here? Sarah, are you here?" David's voice was tense. Yes, we're here," they both replied. William's voice was cold. "So, Sarah, did you manage to convince him to stop the lawsuits and the divorce?" "No. In fact, he threw me out and warned this could lead to serious problems," she admitted, her voice shaking. Williams exploded. "My God, David, what have you done? Sarah, if my wife finds out about this, I'm done. You need to fix this, or I will destroy you both. I don't care what it takes. Make it stop." Sarah cried harder. "There's nothing I can do. He's out of control and not listening to me. He won't even answer my calls or messages." William's voice was steely. "David, you must fix this. Arrange a meeting with Michael. We will meet somewhere loud and public. Sarah, you will be there too. Ask him to drop the lawsuits in front of us. If he refuses, we will explain how disastrous this can be for him and his family. I have people who can handle situations like this, and I won't hesitate to use them to prevent this from becoming a catastrophe. Do you understand what you have to do?" "Yes, Mr. Williams," David replied, his voice trembling. "Yes, Mr. Williams," Sarah whispered. "Then do it tomorrow night. We don't have time to wait," Williams ordered before abruptly ending the call. Sarah and David hung up, both pondering the gravity of the situation. That night, Michael listened to the recorded conversation, unsurprised by their desperation. He began to craft his own plan. The next morning, as expected, David called to arrange a settlement meeting. They agreed to meet at 6 p.m. in a noisy courtyard. At 4 p.m., Michael met with his private investigator, preparing for the meeting. They used advanced noise-canceling technology to record clear audio even in noisy environments. The private investigator would also be present to film the meeting as evidence. Michael arrived at 6:15, intentionally making them wait to give the private investigator time to set up the video equipment. Approaching the group, he saw that Sarah looked nervous. "Sarah," he greeted her, his voice calm but resolute. Michael approached the meeting, his gaze cold and unyielding. "I'm surprised to see you all here together, but I guess I know where your loyalties lie. What brings us here?" John Williams cleared his throat. "Michael, I'm John Williams. I requested this meeting." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Williams, you look different in person. Those videos don't capture your essence. Can't say it's nice to meet you." David Scott stood next to Williams, shifting nervously. Michael's gaze was unrelenting. "David, the man who slept with my wife and destroyed my marriage. Can't say it's nice to meet you either." Williams, trying to maintain his composure, spoke. "I understand your anger. If I were in your place, I wouldn't know how to react. But we need to talk. Go on." Michael didn't move. "What's on your mind?" Williams took a deep breath. "We want you to drop the lawsuits against me, David, and the company." Michael laughed darkly. "Is that all?" "No, sorry. Someone has to pay for taking the most important thing in my life." He looked at Sarah, who was now silently crying. "The only woman I ever loved, and the mother of my children." William's face hardened. "What will it take for you to drop this and take Sarah back? Name your price." Michael slowly shook his head. "No amount of money will make me take her back. She betrayed my love, trust, and the lives of our children for an affair with you two. This is not negotiable. They'll drop the lawsuits on 2 conditions. First, I want $5 million. Second, I want to meet your wives. And Sarah has to confess everything. If you agree, I'll stop the legal proceedings." William's face twisted with rage. "Go to hell, Michael. I'll offer you $100,000, and you sign a non-disclosure agreement to keep the secret forever." Michael smiled, amused by the pitiful offer. "I'll lower it to $4 million, but your families must know what you've done." Williams lost his patience. "Michael, you're signing your own death warrant. Think about this. Stop the accusations and take Sarah back. It was just an affair. We can fix this." Michael took out his phone and sent a few text messages. Then he opened his email and sent the pre-prepared message containing all the compromising evidence, videos, images, and texts, to Sarah's friends, relatives, and colleagues. He also arranged for packages to be delivered to John and David's homes, ensuring their families would also see the evidence. William's face blanched with rage. "Michael, are you even listening? What's your answer? Are you dropping the accusations?" Michael looked directly at him. "My answer to you, John, David, and my wife is, go to hell." At that moment, John and David's phones started ringing. It was their wives. William's face contorted with fury as he glared at Michael. David, visibly trembling, looked like he was about to faint. Sarah, confused, asked Michael what was happening. Michael responded coldly. "Check your email in a few minutes, and you'll understand." After ending the call with his wife, Williams pointed a threatening finger at Michael. "You're dead, Michael. I will make you suffer for this." With that, he stormed out of the courtyard. David approached Michael, his voice trembling. "Why? Why did you do this to me?" Michael was incredulous. "Seriously? You used my wife, the love of my life, and the mother of my children for months, organizing your little affairs with Williams, and you're surprised someone would seek revenge. Everything I sent to your wife was to show her what a scumbag you are and how you destroyed lives." Sarah's phone began ringing as her relatives and friends started calling one after another. Initially, she denied everything, but when she checked her email, she saw the evidence Michael had sent. Her jaw dropped, and she turned to Michael with an outraged look. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded. Michael replied coldly. "You made it too easy. I truly loved you, but it's over. After I hand over this audio recording of the meeting to the authorities and social services, my lawyer is confident I'll get full custody of the girls. You'll be lucky if you avoid jail time. I'm sorry, but you have to face the consequences of your actions." Tricom settled the lawsuit, compensating Michael with $2 million. John Williams was ousted from his CEO position and fired without severance for violating the morality clause in his contract. He lost over $10 million in stock options and a $5 million severance package. Williams also received a 5-year prison term for conspiracy to commit murder and other charges. His wife divorced him while he was in prison, and investigations into his business dealings left him penniless. This news brought Michael some solace, and he smiled for the first time in months. Mrs. Scott also divorced David, leaving him with no money, shelter, or support. He was fined $1 million in civil court for conspiracy, infidelity, and loss of affection. After losing his job, David was forced to work as a day laborer. Michael took grim satisfaction in David's downfall, knowing he now lived in poverty. Sarah received a 5-year prison term, but with Michael's intervention, her sentence was reduced to 1 year of house arrest, followed by 4 years of probation for conspiracy. She lost custody of the children, and Michael received full custody. Despite her efforts, she couldn't obtain a divorce due to the overwhelming evidence against her. Since the house belonged to Michael, she was left homeless after her release. She fell into a deep depression and now lives in her mother's basement. Her family turned their backs on her, leading to the loss of visitation rights to her children. The email Michael sent exposed a dark side of Sarah no one had seen before, destroying her support network. Forgiveness seems unattainable for Sarah, even from herself. She relies on medication after several suicide attempts and has been in psychiatric hospitals several times, trying to come to terms with the lives she ruined. Michael now dedicates all his time to his daughters. Free from work, the divorce allows him to focus solely on raising the children. Since Sarah's suicide attempts, the girls haven't seen their mother, but they receive great support from Michael's sister and his mother. They will recover from this traumatic event without long-term consequences. Although revenge brought Michael brief satisfaction, it can't fully heal his wounds. He still feels love and forgiveness for Sarah, but the memory of her betrayal lingers in his mind. Caring for his daughters keeps him busy and wards off loneliness. However, due to the betrayal, lies, and deceit, it will take many years before Michael can open his heart to love and trust again.